Welcome, dear listeners, to the captivating world of Hercule Poirot's Homicide in the Clouds, a tale of aerial suspense, cunning betrayal, and masterful deduction inspired by the genius of Agatha Christie. Imagine a luxurious aeroplane slicing through the skies from Paris to London, carrying a flamboyant actress, a shrewd businessman, a nervous archaeologist, and a charming doctor, each harboring secrets darker than the clouds below. When a deadly dart strikes mid-flight, sealing the cabin as a soaring crime scene, only the brilliant Hercule Poirot can unravel the web of motives, forbidden affairs, stolen treasures, and vengeful poisons. As turbulence shakes alliances and revelations plummet, one question haunts: who dared murder among the heavens? Dive in for a descent into shocking truth. Chapter 1. The Ascent into Suspicion. The sleek silver wings of the Imperial Airways flight cut through the crisp morning air like a knife through silk, lifting the majestic de Havilland Dragon Rapide from the bustling tarmac of Le Bourget Airport in Paris. Below, the patchwork fields of northern France blurred into a Verdun mosaic, giving way to the shimmering ribbon of the English Channel as the plane banked northwest toward Croydon Aerodrome in London. It was the spring of 1935, a time when air travel still carried the thrill of novelty, reserved for the elite who could afford to defy gravity in style. Among the 12 passengers aboard this intimate voyage was a man whose reputation preceded him like a shadow at noon: Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with a moustache as impeccably waxed as his sense of order. Poirot adjusted his patent leather shoes against the plush carpet of the cabin, his gloved hands folding neatly over the silver head of his cane. He had boarded with the air of a connoisseur sampling a fine vintage, his sharp eyes, those piercing hazel orbs, sweeping over his fellow travelers with the precision of a jeweler appraising gems. The cabin was a cocoon of luxury. Polished wood paneling gleamed under soft electric lights, and the seats, upholstered in deep crimson leather, cradled bodies accustomed to comfort. A stewardess in a crisp uniform glided down the aisle, offering flutes of chilled champagne that fizzed like whispered secrets. To Poirot's left sat Madame Giselle Laurent, a flamboyant actress whose career had spanned the glittering stages of Paris and the silver screens of Hollywood. Her auburn curls cascaded artfully from beneath a feathered hat, and her lips curved in a secretive smile that hinted at scandals long buried but never forgotten. She toyed with a string of pearls around her neck, her laughter tinkling like crystal as she chatted with the stewardess about the latest Parisian fashions. "Darling, these flights are divine, but the turbulence, mon Dieu, it ruins one's coiffure," she exclaimed, her voice a melodic lilt that drew admiring glances from across the aisle. Directly opposite her was Mr. Reginald Hargrove, a shrewd businessman whose pinstriped suit and gold pocket watch screamed old money. He clutched a sleek leather briefcase on his lap as if it contained the crown jewels, his fingers drumming an impatient rhythm. Hargrove's face was a mask of calculated composure, but Poirot noted the faint sheen of sweat on his brow despite the cool cabin air. "Business waits for no man nor weather," he muttered to himself, flipping through a sheaf of papers that rustled like autumn leaves. Beside Hargrove fidgeted Dr. Elias Thorne, a charming physician with a disarming smile and hands that betrayed a subtle tremor, perhaps the remnants of a surgeon's precision dulled by time or something more insidious. Thorne's eyes darted occasionally to Madame Laurent, a flicker of recognition. Or was it resentment, crossing his features before he buried his nose in a medical journal? Fascinating advancements in toxicology, he remarked to no one in particular, his voice smooth as aged brandy. Completing the quartet of intrigue was Professor Lydia Voss, a nervous archaeologist whose tweed jacket and wire-rimmed spectacles evoked dusty tombs and forgotten relics. She clutched a worn notebook, her pen scratching furiously as she sketched what appeared to be ancient hieroglyphs. Voss glanced up now and then, her pale eyes wide behind the lenses, as if expecting the plane to plunge into some mythical abyss. "The skies hold as many mysteries as the sands," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Poirot's little grey cells buzzed with quiet amusement at this assemblage. "Ah, mes amis," he thought, each a puzzle piece in the grand mosaic of human folly. He had embarked on this flight for a brief respite, en route to consult on a minor theft in London, but already the eccentricities of his companion stirred his detective instincts. The hum of the twin engines provided a rhythmic backdrop, lulling some passengers into drowsy repose, while others sipped their drinks and exchanged polite banalities. As the plane leveled out at cruising altitude, the stewardess, a young woman named Elise, circulated with trays of delicate hors d'oeuvres, caviar on crisp toast points, smoked salmon curls, and tiny eclairs dusted with powdered sugar. The cabin filled with the aroma of luxury, mingling with the faint tang of aviation fuel that seeped through the vents. Poirot accepted a flute of champagne, savouring the bubbles that danced on his tongue. "Exquisite," he murmured, tipping his glass toward Madame Laurent, who responded with a coquettish wink. The conversation flowed like the channel below, surface calm, hiding undercurrents. Hargrove leaned forward, addressing Thorne. "Doctor, I've heard you're quite the expert in rare ailments. Ever treated anyone for, let's say, exotic poisons?" His tone was casual, but Poirot detected a probing edge, as if testing waters for hidden depths. Thorne's tremor paused mid-sip. "Poisons, an unfortunate necessity in my line of work. The tropics are rife with them. Curare, strychnine, even darts from blowguns used by indigenous tribes." He set his glass down with deliberate care. "Why do you ask? Planning a safari?" Hargrove chuckled, a sound devoid of mirth. "Merely curiosity. Business takes me to strange places." His eyes flicked to his briefcase, and Poirot wondered what secrets it guarded. Madame Laurent interjected, her voice slicing through the tension like a spotlight. "Gentlemen, enough of such morbid talk. We're flying among the gods. Let's speak of love, of passion." She turned to Professor Voss. "You, ma chérie, with your digs and treasures, have you ever unearthed a relic that stole your heart?" Voss blinked, her notebook slipping slightly. "Hearts are fleeting, artifacts endure. But yes, once in Egypt, a scarab amulet inscribed with a curse. It brought misfortune to those who mishandled it." Her words hung in the air, laced with an unspoken warning. Poirot smiled inwardly. Curses, poisons, fortunes. Ah, the threads weave themselves. He was about to inquire further when the plane hit a pocket of turbulence, jolting the cabin like a reprimand from the heavens. Glasses clinked, and Voss gasped, clutching her armrests. "Nothing to fear," Elise assured, steadying a tray. "Just a bit of rough air over the channel." But as the shaking subsided, a new sound pierced the calm. A sharp, guttural gasp from Madame Laurent. Her hand flew to her neck, eyes widening in horror. "Qu'est-ce que?" she rasped, before slumping forward, her pearls scattering like fallen stars across the floor. Chaos erupted, Hargrove leaped to his feet, briefcase tumbling. Good God, woman! Thorne rushed over, his medical instincts kicking in, feeling for a pulse. Voss shrank back, notebook forgotten. Poirot, ever composed, rose swiftly, his cane tapping the floor like a gavel calling order. Mademoiselle Elise, seal the cabin doors at once. No one enters or leaves. His voice, though soft, carried the authority of thunder. The stewardess, pale but obedient, complied, her hands trembling on the latch. Thorne straightened, his face grim. She's dead. Look, here, embedded in her neck. He pointed to a slender dart, no longer than a matchstick, its tip glistening with a viscous residue. The cabin fell silent, save for the engine's relentless drone. Poirot knelt beside the body, his gloved fingers hovering but not touching. A dart, in mid-air. This is no accident, mes amis. This is murder, precise, audacious. His moustache twitched, a telltale sign of his mind accelerating. The weapon, primitive yet effective. A blowgun perhaps, but from where? The passengers exchanged glances, suspicion blooming like ink in water. Hargrove retrieved his briefcase, clutching it tighter. Impossible. We're thousands of feet up. Who could have? Precisely the question, Poirot replied, his eyes scanning each face. And the answer lies among us. Mademoiselle Elise, alert the captain. Discreetly. We must land as planned, but until then, this cabin is my domain. As the plane continued its inexorable path, Poirot began his methodical inquiry, starting with the basics. Madame Laurent. Did any of you know her personally? Thorne hesitated. Only by a reputation. She was involved in certain circles. Actresses often are. Voss nodded faintly. I met her once at a fundraiser for antiquities. She donated generously, but there was talk of disputed provenance on some items. Hargrove shifted. Business acquaintance. She invested in one of my ventures, a film project that soured. Petty jealousies, nothing more. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Jealousies can fester into motives, monsieur. And you, doctor, your hands, they tremble. Nerves, or familiarity with such darts. Thorne bristled. Insulting. I've treated dart wounds in the Amazon, but I assure you, my hands are steady when it counts. The interrogations unfolded like an unfolding map, revealing cracks in facades. Elise confessed to overhearing a heated phone call Madame Laurent made before takeoff. Something about forged documents and inheritance. Voss admitted her notebook contained sketches of artifacts that might link to the actress's collection, perhaps a motive for theft disguised as murder. Hargrove's alibi wavered when Poirot noted a smudge on his cuff, matching the actress's lipstick shade. A mere brush in the aisle, he protested, but his eyes betrayed unease. As the English coastline loomed on the horizon, the plane began its descent, the cabin pressure shifting like the weight of unspoken truths. Poirot paced the narrow aisle, piecing fragments. The dart's trajectory suggested it came from behind, ruling out some seats but implicating others. A quick search yielded no blowgun, but a discarded handkerchief in Thorne's pocket carried a faint chemical scent, antidote or accelerant. The passengers sat in taut silence, mutual distrust thickening the air. Voss whispered to Hargrove, "This is madness. Who benefits from her death?" "Someone with everything to lose," he replied cryptically. Poirot halted, his voice cutting through. "Mesdames et messieurs, we land soon, but the killer's shadow descends with us. Petty jealousies, forged identities. The truth ascends from suspicion. Rest assured, Hercule Poirot will illuminate it." The wheels touched down at Croydon with a gentle thud, but the tension remained aloft. As authorities boarded, Poirot glanced back at the cabin, a floating stage where deception had taken flight. The actress's body, covered now, was a silent sentinel to the enigma. Yet in his mind, the little grey cells whirred onward, promising that this ascent into suspicion was merely the prelude to revelations yet to unfold. Chapter 2. Echoes in the hangar. The Croydon aerodrome bustled with a controlled frenzy of arrivals and departures, but in the shadow of the hangar, where the de Havilland Dragon Rapide had been towed, an unnatural hush prevailed. The passengers, now suspects under the watchful eyes of Scotland Yard inspectors, were herded into a makeshift interrogation room, a converted pilot's lounge with faded maps on the walls and the faint scent of engine oil lingering like an uninvited guest. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his compact frame radiating authority as he conferred with Inspector Japp, a burly man whose moustache rivaled Poirot's in vigour but lacked its elegance. Mon ami Japp, this affair is delicate, like a soufflé that must not collapse. Allow me to orchestrate the inquiries. The killer is among us, and haste will only muddle the ingredients. Japp grunted, rubbing his chin. All right, Poirot, you've got the lead, but keep it tight. The press is sniffing around already. Murder on a plane, it's front page fodder. The room was Spartan, a long oak table scarred from years of briefings, surrounded by mismatched chairs that creaked under weight. Overhead, a single bulb cast harsh shadows, turning faces into masks of unease. Madame Giselle Laurent's body had been whisked away to the morgue, but her presence haunted the air, an invisible spectre demanding justice. The suspects, Hargrove, Thorne, Voss, and even the stewardess Elise, sat rigidly, their earlier mid-air composure fractured by the grounding of reality. Poirot began with a flourish, twirling his cane like a conductor's baton. Mesdames et messieurs, the skies may have released us, but the web of deceit holds fast. We shall unravel it thread by thread. Monsieur Hargrove, you first. Your briefcase. Open it, if you please. Hargrove's fingers tightened on the leather, his knuckles whitening. This is preposterous. I demand a solicitor. Demands are for the innocent, Poirot countered, his eyes glinting like polished obsidian. Or perhaps for those with secrets to shield. The lipstick on your cuff. Madame Laurent's shade, non? A mere brush in the aisle, you said, but brushes leave no such intimate marks. Under the inspector's nod, Hargrove relented, the latches clicking open with a sound like cracking bones. Inside lay stacks of documents, contracts, ledgers, and a photograph, faded but unmistakable, of Hargrove and Laurent entwined in a Parisian café, their smiles laced with forbidden intimacy. A clandestine affair, Hargrove admitted, his voice a gravelly whisper. It ended months ago. She threatened to expose it, ruin my marriage, my business empire, but murder, I'd sooner bankrupt myself. Poirot leaned in, inhaling the faint perfume clinging to the photo. Affairs end, monsieur, but grudges endure. And your ventures, film investments gone sour. Did she demand repayment in the clouds? Hargrove's gaze dropped, but before he could respond, Dr. Thorne interjected, his tremor more pronounced now on solid ground. This is irrelevant. Focus on the dart, exotic, yes, but not from my repertoire. Ah, doctor, Poirot pivoted smoothly. Your bag, then. A man of medicine carries tools of healing, not harm. Yet in the Amazon, you learned otherwise. Thorne's bag, a weathered satchel of oiled canvas, sat at his feet. As Poirot gestured, Japp's constable retrieved it, unzipping a side pocket that yielded a hidden compartment cleverly sewn into the lining. Out tumbled vials of amber liquid labeled in faded ink, curare derivatives, hemlock extracts, and a blowgun mouthpiece carved from jungle reed. The room gasped in unison. Voss's spectacles slipped down her nose, and Elise clutched her uniform collar. "Those are samples, for research," Thorne protested, his charm evaporating like mist in sunlight. "I lecture on toxicology. These are inert, educational." Poirot uncorked one vial delicately, sniffing. "Inert, or instruments of vengeance. Madame Laurent's dart matches this provenance. South American, precise. Your hands tremble, doctor, not from age, but from guilt." Thorne slammed his fist on the table, the vials rattling. "Guilt? She destroyed my career. A false accusation years ago, malpractice in a colonial hospital. She was a patient, twisted the facts for a payout, but I didn't kill her." The revelations cascaded like dominoes, fracturing the fragile alliances forged in flight. Voss, sensing the spotlight shifting, stammered forward. "It's the artifact, the scarab I mentioned. Madame Laurent acquired it on the black market from my dig site in Egypt. She knew it was stolen. She blackmailed me to authenticate it for auction." Poirot's moustache quivered with interest. "Blackmail, Professor, a motive as ancient as your relics, and you sketched it in your notebook, planning retrieval, perhaps." Voss flushed, her tweed jacket suddenly too warm. "I confronted her before takeoff. She laughed, said it was hers by right, but I swear, no violence." As accusations swirled, Poirot paced, constructing a timeline in his mind's eye. "Let us reconstruct. Boarding at Le Bourget, 9:15 a.m. Madame Laurent argues on the telephone. Inheritance disputes. Elise overheard. Seats assigned. Hargrove across, Thorne adjacent, Voss behind. The dart strikes at 10:45 mid-channel. Who moved? Who glanced away? Elise, until now silent, spoke up. "I served drinks at 10:30. Monsieur Hargrove requested a refill, spilling some. Distracting. Dr. Thorne adjusted his bag then. Professor Voss." She dropped her pen, bending low. The web tightened. Financial ruin linked Hargrove and Thorne. Shared investments in Laurent's failed film. Debts mounting like storm clouds. Voss's artifact tied into the blackmail, a chain of desperation. Suddenly, the room's tension ignited. Hargrove bolted upright, eyes wild. "Enough! This is a witch hunt!" He lunged for the door, shoving the constable aside in a bid for escape, his briefcase swinging like a weapon. Chaos erupted, chairs toppled, Voss screamed, Thorne froze. Jap tackled Hargrove mid-stride, pinning him against the wall with a thud that echoed through the hangar. "Not so fast, mate," Jap growled, cuffing him. "Running only proves the pudding." Order restored, but barely. Hargrove panted, defeated. I panicked. The scandal. It would destroy me. Poirot nodded sagely. "Panic reveals the cracks, monsieur, but flight on ground is as futile as in air." As the group settled into uneasy silence, a constable entered handing Poirot a folded note. "Found slipped under the lounge door, sir. Addressed to you." Poirot unfolded it, his expression unchanging, but his eyes narrowing. Scrawled in hasty script, the dart was but the first strike. Beware the accomplice among allies. The room chilled despite the hangar's warmth. "An accomplice," Poirot murmured. "The plot thickens like cream in coffee. We are not done, mes amis. The echoes of this homicide reverberate still." Inspector Jap assigned guards, dispersing the suspects to separate holding cells for the night. But Poirot lingered, staring at the aeroplane through the window, its wings now clipped, much like the freedoms of those aboard. The dart's poison had claimed one life, but the venom of secrets threatened more. Outside, a spring rain began to patter against the tin roof, mimicking the turbulence they had left behind, while inside, Poirot's little grey cells churned, sifting truths from the silt of lies. The investigation deepened as evening fell, with Poirot requesting files on each suspect. Hargrove's business empire teetered on embezzlement charges, Laurent's affair the potential spark. Thorne's medical license hung by a thread, revoked in absentia after her accusations. Voss's academic career was marred by plagiarism rumours, the Scarab a desperate bid for redemption. Elise, questioned privately, revealed a nugget. Madame Laurent whispered to me during service, "Watch the doctor, he carries death in his veins." Poirot pondered this, twining it into the narrative. Alliances had shattered, but new suspicions bloomed. Was Elise an innocent observer, or a pawn in play? The cryptic note suggested layers yet unpeeled, perhaps a partnership between unlikely foes. By midnight, as the aerodrome quieted, Poirot retired to a nearby inn, but sleep eluded him. The rain intensified, drumming a rhythm that echoed the flight's engines. In his mind, he replayed gestures, the tremble, the spill, the drop, each a clue in a mosaic of malice. The accomplice lurked shadow to the killer's form, and Poirot vowed to drag them into light. The hangar, now empty save for echoes, held its breath, awaiting the dawn when revelations would ascend once more. Chapter 3. Veils of the Past. Unveiled dawn crept over Croydon Aerodrome like a reluctant thief, painting the hangars in hues of bruised lavender and reluctant gold. Hercule Poirot, having rested a few hours of fitful rest from the clutches of insomnia, emerged from the modest inn with his overcoat buttoned against the morning chill. His moustache, freshly groomed, bristled with determination, and his cane tapped a rhythmic cadence on the cobblestones as he made his way back to the makeshift command center. The rain from the night before had left puddles that mirrored the leaden sky, each one a miniature abyss reflecting the unresolved enigma of Madame Giselle Laurent's demise. Inspector Japp awaited him in the lounge, nursing a steaming mug of tea that smelled of oversteeped leaves and impatience. "Poirot, you're up with the larks. Any epiphanies in your dreams?" "Dreams are for the idle, mon ami," Poirot replied, his accent clipping the words like shears on a hedge. "The little grey cells labour ceaselessly. We must delve deeper into the shadows of their pasts. Histories are the roots from which motives bloom." The suspects had been confined overnight in separate quarters. Hargrove in a stark holding cell, pacing like a caged lion. Thorne in a medical bay, his tremor now a constant companion. Voss in a quiet office, her notebook her only solace. And Elise in staff lodgings, her uniform rumpled from sleepless vigil. Poirot insisted on private sessions, away from prying ears, to peel back the layers without the distortion of group dynamics. He began with Professor Lydia Voss, escorting her to a sunlit alcove where dust motes danced in the beams filtering through grimy windows. Voss adjusted her spectacles, her fingers ink-stained from frantic annotations. "This is intolerable," she murmured, but her eyes held a glint of resignation. "Intolerable, madame. Murder is the true outrage. Tell me of Egypt, of the scarab that binds you to Madame Laurent." Poirot's voice was a gentle probe, inviting confession like a confessor in a shadowed booth. Voss sighed, her shoulders sagging under the weight of memory. "It was 1932, the Valley of the Kings. My team unearthed a cache, amulets, seals, a scarab inscribed with a pharaoh's curse against thieves. One vanished from the site. Months later, I saw it in Paris, around Laurent's neck at a gala. She claimed legitimate purchase, but I knew the dealer, a forger named Duval. She blackmailed me, authenticated publicly, or she'd expose my dig's funding irregularities. I refused at first, but academia is a viper's nest. One scandal, and you're buried. Poirot nodded, his fingers steepled. And on the flight, you dropped your pen, opportunely, perhaps, to launch the dart. Her laugh was bitter, like unsweetened cocoa. If I were the killer, I'd have chosen a subtler curse. But no, I was sketching the scarab from memory, hoping to prove its forgery posthumously. She produced a page from her notebook, intricate lines depicting the beetle with annotations on mismatched hieroglyphs. Intrigued, Poirot pocketed the sketch with her permission. Posthumously, you anticipated her death. Voss paled. A figure of speech. She had enemies. Plenty. The interview lingered, unveiling Voss's fragile world, a career teetering on grants, a rival archaeologist who envied her finds, and a personal loss, a brother lost to desert fevers, fueling her obsession with ancient protections. As she departed, Poirot sensed authenticity in her vulnerability, but doubts niggled like grains of sand in his shoe. Next came Dr. Elias Thorne, whose medical bay reeked of antiseptic and suppressed fury. He sat on a cot, his hands clasped to still the shake. You've branded me already, haven't you? The poison expert with a grudge. Poirot settled opposite, his gaze unwavering. Grudges are flames, Doctor. They consume or illuminate. Elaborate on the Colonial Hospital, British Guiana, 1928. Thorne's eyes clouded, transporting him back to steamy jungles and fever wards. Laurent was there, recovering from a snake bite. I treated her successfully, but she accused me of impropriety, claiming I tampered with her medications for personal gain. Lies. It cost me my post, my reputation. I wandered the Americas studying toxins as penance, turning venom into knowledge. Those vials, lecture props, inert as promised. And yet, Poirot interjected. Madame whispered to Elise, watch the doctor, he carries death in his veins. Prophetic, no? Thorne leaned forward, veins bulging in his neck. She taunted me on the flight, slipped a note under my journal. Your poisons won't save you from the truth. I ignored it. But now, perhaps she knew her end approached from another quarter. The revelation sparked like a match in dry tinder. Poirot pressed. Another quarter. You suspect collusion. Thorne hesitated, then whispered, Hargrove. I overheard them arguing in Paris last week, something about shared debts from her film flop. He funded it anonymously. She squandered it on luxuries. As Thorne's session concluded, a constable interrupted. Sir, urgent telegram for you. It was from Poirot's contact in Paris, a dossier on Thorne's travels, confirming his toxin expertise, but also an alibi for a similar poisoning case dismissed as coincidence. Layers upon layers, like an onion that brought tears. Midday brought Reginald Hargrove, released from his cell but shackled by scrutiny. He lounged in the lounge, feigning nonchalance with a cigarette dangling from his lips. Poirot, you're a terrier with a bone. What more can I confess? The affair, yes. The investments, disastrous. But murder, I'd lose more than I'd gain. Poirot circled him slowly. Gains are multifaceted, monsieur. Your empire, teetering, as you say. Laurent's will, who inherits. Hargrove exhaled smoke in a languid plume. Her estate, to a niece in Lyon, I believe. But she hinted at revisions, cutting out betrayers, if she meant me. A new angle emerged. Hargrove's briefcase yielded a coded ledger, deciphered by Poirot's keen eye as loans to Laurent. collateralized by her jewelry collection, including the scarab. You knew of its dubious origin, Poirot queried. Suspected. She used it as leverage, but I swear, the spill during service, accidental. My nerves, frayed from a threatening letter I received pre-flight. Debts come due in the clouds. The plot coiled tighter, a serpent in the grass. Poirot dismissed Hargrove, his mind abuzz with interconnections, debts linking Hargrove and Thorn, artifacts tying Voss and Laurent's taunts as catalysts. Elise, the stewardess, was last, her youthful face etched with exhaustion in the fading afternoon light. I only served them, monsieur. Why drag me into this? Because, mademoiselle, eyes that serve see much. The whisper, death in his veins. What else did she impart? Elise fidgeted with her cap. She was agitated boarding, handed me a sealed envelope. If anything happens, deliver to Poirot. I thought it a jest. Your fame precedes you. But now, she produced it, a cream envelope, sealed with wax. Poirot opened it carefully. Inside, a list of names, crossed out save 3, Hargrove, debtor, Thorn, betrayer, Voss, thief. At the bottom, the accomplice wears a mask of innocence. Electrified, Poirot probed Elise's own history, a fledgling career in aviation, a family in debt, perhaps vulnerable to bribes. Did anyone approach you pre-flight? Her denial came too swiftly, eyes averting. No, but Hargrove tipped generously, unusually so. Suspicion seeded, but before Poirot could deepen the furrow, alarms blared, smoke billowing from the hangar where the plane rested. Chaos ensued, inspectors rushing, suspects herded out. The fire, contained swiftly, targeted the cabin. Oxygen masks tampered with, rigged to release a noxious gas if activated. Sabotage, Jap bellowed. On ground, the killers desperate. In the melee, Voss collapsed, feigning a faint. Or was it? Revived, she confessed tearfully. It was me, the dart. To retrieve the scarab, end the blackmail. Forgive me. But Poirot, amidst the acrid smoke, shook his head. False, madame. Your confession protects another. Your sketch shows the dart's angle impossible from your seat. No, this is misdirection, a veil to obscure the true shadow. As evening descended, the group reconvened under heightened guard, the fire's embers mirroring the investigation's heat. Poirot pondered the telegram, the list, the sabotage, a ground-based echo of aerial peril. The accomplice's note rang true. Alliances hid betrayals, and the past veils parted only to reveal deeper shrouds, with suspects narrowed. Thorn's expertise, Hargrove's greed, Voss's deception, Elise's potential duplicity. The detective sensed the zenith approaching, where truths would pierce the stratosphere of lies. Chapter 4. The vortex of deceit, twilight draped Croydon Aerodrome in a shroud of indigo, the hangars looming like silent sentinels under a canopy of emerging stars. The air hummed with the distant whine of propellers from departing flights, a stark reminder that while the world soared onward, the tangled knot of Madame Giselle Laurent's murder anchored this disparate group to earth-bound reckonings. Hercule Poirot, undeterred by the encroaching night, had commandeered a larger briefing room adjacent to the lounge, a space once used for pilot debriefs, now transformed into his theatre of revelation. Maps of flight paths adorned the walls, but Poirot ignored them, focusing instead on a chalkboard where he had sketched a crude diagram of the plane's cabin, seats labelled with initials, arrows denoting movements, and a bold X marking the fatal strike. Inspector Japp rubbed his temples, the strain of the day etching lines around his eyes. Poirot, We've grilled them all day. Voss's confession, false or not, muddies the waters. And that fire, Arson Squad says the gas in the masks was non-lethal, just a scare. Someone's playing games. Games, mon ami. Non, this is chess. A grandmaster's gambit. The false confession, the sabotage, diversions to scatter our pawns. Poirot's voice resonated with quiet intensity, his cane pointing to the diagram like a rapier. We reconstruct, not in air, but here, on terra firma. Bring them in, all together. The vortex swirls. We shall draw the debris to the center. The suspects filed in under guard, their faces a gallery of exhaustion and defiance. Hargrove slouched in a chair, his tie loosened like a noose half escaped. Thorne perched rigidly, his hands folded in a futile bid for steadiness. Voss clutched her notebook like a talisman, her spectacles reflecting the room's stark bulb. Elise hovered at the edge, her stewardess poise cracked by shadows under her eyes. They formed a reluctant semicircle around the chalkboard, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Poirot began with theatrical flair, his diminutive stature belying the command he wielded. Mesdames et messieurs, the fatal moment. 10:45 a.m. over the channel. Madame Laurent gasps, the dart pierces. From whence? Trajectory suggests rearward, Voss's domain, or perhaps a clever deflection. He traced an arrow with chalk, the screech echoing like a distant scream. But angles deceive. Dr. Thorne, your bag, adjacent seat. A flick of the wrist, concealed by turbulence. Thorne's composure fractured, a vein pulsing at his temple. Preposterous. My vendetta was old, cool to embers. Why risk it aloft with witnesses? Because, Doctor, Poirot countered, producing the sealed envelope from his pocket like a magician's reveal. Madame anticipated peril. Her list, debtor, betrayer, thief. You, the betrayer, from Guyana's fevered wards, but deeper, a long-forgotten outpost betrayal. She wasn't just a patient. She was your fiancé's sister, non? The one who perished under your care. Her death blamed on you. But whispered rumors say Laurent fabricated evidence to claim the family fortune. The room inhaled sharply. Thorne's tremor escalated to a quake, his face draining of color. How? He trailed off, then surged forward. Yes, she ruined me twice. First love, then livelihood. But I sought restitution through courts, not poison. Voss interjected, her voice quavering. Courts? Laurent bragged of diamonds, hidden wealth from her sister's estate. She wore them as earrings on the flight, disguised as paste. Poirot's eyes sparkled. Ah, the diamonds. Monsieur Hargrove, your greed intertwines here. Investments soured but collateral. Not just the scarab, those gems. You argued in Paris, demanding them as repayment. Hargrove stubbed out his cigarette on the floor, sparks flying like fleeting alibis. Demands, yes. Murder, absurd. I'd have sued, not slain. The detective paced, weaving the threads. Sue, with her will revised, cutting you out. The telegram from Paris confirms, changes filed days ago, naming a charity. Your motive surges like a tide. Elise, silent until now, shifted uncomfortably. The earrings, I helped her fasten them pre-flight. She said they were insurance against vultures. Poirot halted, his gaze piercing her. Vultures, mademoiselle, or accomplices. Your generous tip from Hargrove, bribe for distraction, the spill he caused, your cue to look away. She flushed, but held firm. Coincidence. I serve all passengers equally. To test the waters, Poirot orchestrated a misdirection, a decoy dart, fashioned from a pen nib and handed to a constable disguised as a mechanic. Observe, he announced, slipping it into Thorne's pocket during a feigned pat-down. Loyalties fracture under pressure. The group murmured as the discovery unfolded. Thorn exploded. Planted. This is entrapment. Hargrove smirked. Voss gasped, but Elise's eyes darted. A tell, perhaps. The confrontation ignited. Hargrove rounded on Thorn. You with your poisons, admitted you colluded with Voss for the artifact, using my debts as cover. Voss recoiled. Lies. I'd never. Thorn laughed bitterly. Collusion. You're the one with the threatening letter, self-penned for sympathy. Accusations volleyed like gunfire in a skirmish, alliances shattering like glass underfoot. In the melee, a revelation burst forth. Elise, cornered, confessed partially. I am not just a stewardess. Interpol, undercover, tracking Laurent's black market dealings, the scarab, the diamonds, all part of a smuggling ring. I monitored, but didn't kill. Poirot's moustache twitched in triumph. Ah, the mask of innocence. Your mask from the note. But agents protect assets unless threatened. Elise's facade crumbled further. She discovered my identity mid-flight, threatened exposure, but I swear, no dart. The chapter's pivot arrived with the unmasking of a pivotal lie. Poirot produced Voss's sketch, overlaying it on the diagram. The angle, impossible for one alone. 2 hands, one to distract, one to strike. Hargrove's spill, Thorn's bag adjustment, coordinated. But deeper scrutiny revealed the lie. The threatening letter to Hargrove, handwriting matched to Thorn's journal. Forged by you, Doctor, to implicate another. Thorn deflated. To deflect, but not murder. As tensions peaked, the killer's audacious plan for a second strike materialized. A hidden vial in the room's ventilation, rigged to release toxin when the heater cycled, began hissing faintly. Voss noticed first. Gas, like the masks. Panic surged, but Poirot, ever vigilant, smashed the grate with his cane, venting the fumes outward. Japp's men evacuated, foiling the ploy just as the room filled with acrid wisps. The accomplice strikes again, Poirot declared amid coughs. But we narrowed to 2, greed and vengeance entwined. In the fresh night air outside, the group regrouped under floodlights, the aerodrome's bustle a distant hum. Hargrove and Thorn eyed each other warily, Voss and Elise flanking them like bookends of deceit. Poirot, silhouetted against the hangar, summarized. The diamonds, missing from the body, stolen post-mortem. The list implicates, but the envelope's wax, cracked prematurely. Someone peeked. Suspicion crystallized on Hargrove and Thorn, their shared debts a bridge to conspiracy. Yet Elise's Interpol revelation added intrigue. Her reports mentioned a partner in the skies. The stakes heightened, the vortex pulling tighter as Poirot's deductions hurtled toward the inexorable truth, the night stars witnessing the unraveling of human frailties. The investigation pressed on into the wee hours, with Poirot requesting wiretaps on their communications, yielding a cryptic message from Thorn to an unknown contact. Phase 2 aborted. Proceed to extraction. Hargrove's alibis for Paris meetings crumbled under scrutiny, revealing clandestine rendezvous with Laurent's jeweler, appraising the diamonds. Voss, exonerated partially by her false confession's protective intent, shielding Elise, her distant cousin, provided a key. I overheard whisper on the tarmac pre-flight, Thorn to Hargrove. The clouds will clear our slate. Elise, under oath, divulged her badge number, verified by Japp's call to headquarters. I tailed Laurent for months. She fenced artifacts through Hargrove's networks, poisons via Thorn's contacts. The web glistened under interrogation lights, each strand vibrating with potential snaps. Poirot, sipping a hastily brewed tisane, pieced the mosaic, a triumvirate fractured but duo dominant. The second strike's failure exposed wiring traced to Hargrove's briefcase tools, electrical know-how from his engineering past. As midnight tolled from a distant clock, the suspects dispersed to guarded rooms, but sleep was a stranger. Poirot lingered, staring at the chalkboard's chaos, his little grey cells a whirlwind mirroring the vortex. The diamonds gleam, the darts sting, the gases whisper, all converged, promising dawn's clarity amid the deceit storm. Chapter 5. Descent into clarity. The first fingers of dawn clawed at the horizon, casting a pallid glow over Croydon Aerodrome, where the remnants of the night's turmoil clung like dew on the tarmac. The briefing room, now a battleground of wilted suspicions and frayed nerves, hummed with the low murmur of constables shuffling papers and the distant clatter of teacups on saucers. Hercule Poirot, impeccably attired despite the sleepless vigil, stood before the chalkboard like a maestro poised for the symphony's finale. His eyes, sharp as flint, swept over the assembled suspects, Hargrove, Thorne, Voss, and Elise, each seated in a ring of chairs that evoked a courtroom's unforgiving geometry. Inspector Japp flanked him, arms crossed, a bulwark of official skepticism. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot intoned, his voice a silken thread drawing them in. The hour of clarity dawns. We have navigated the tempest of lies, the eddies of motive, and now we descend to the bedrock of truth. This homicide in the clouds was no solitary strike, but a conspiracy forged in the fires of shared desperation. Observe the mosaic: debts, vendettas, artifacts, diamonds, all interlocking like the gears of a Swiss timepiece. He erased a swathe of the diagram with a flourish, redrawing arrows that converged on two figures, Hargrove and Thorne. The room tensed, breaths held like secrets on the verge of escape. Hargrove's fingers dug into his armrests, his once polished veneer cracked like old varnish. Thorne's tremor had stilled into an eerie calm, his eyes locked on Poirot as if measuring a duelist across a misty field. "Let us commence with the dart," Poirot continued, producing a facsimile from his pocket, a slender reed tipped with a harmless pin. Exotic, precise, laced with curare from Thorne's vials. But launch it how? In confined quarters, amid watchful eyes. The spill, Monsieur Hargrove, your accident with the drink, created the diversion. Elise turned. Voss bent for her pen, and in that fleeting chaos, Thorne flicked the dart from his sleeve, concealed by the journal on his lap. Trajectory, aided by the plane's subtle bank, curving the path just so. Thorne's lips parted in protest, but Poirot raised a hand. "Deny not yet, doctor. Your grudge from Guyana, deepened by Laurent's theft of your fiancée's inheritance, those very diamonds recut into earrings. You sought them as rightful claim, but she dangled them like bait." Voss leaned forward, her voice a whisper of wind through ruins. "But the scarab, my scarab, how does it fit?" "Ah, Professor, your relic was the decoy," Poirot explained, his moustache quivering with the thrill of unveiling. Laurent fenced it through Hargrove's networks, but it masked the true prize, the diamonds smuggled in plain sight. Hargrove, drowning in debts from her squandered films, partnered with Thorne, old acquaintances from colonial days, bonded by mutual ruin. Together, they plotted. Eliminate her aloft, where escape seemed impossible, thus alibi incarnate. Hargrove's laugh rang hollow, echoing off the walls like a misfired shot. "Fantasy, Poirot, where's your proof? Scribbles and suspicions." Poirot's smile was a blade unsheathed. "Proof? The wiretap, monsieur. Your message to Thorne. Phase 2 aborted. The electrical tampering in the ventilation. your engineering prowess from youth, tools from your briefcase, and the diamonds vanish from her ears post-mortem. Where, in Thorne's medical bay, during his examination of the body, transferred to Hargrove's ledger pouch, Elise, her Interpol facade now a shield rather than a secret, interjected sharply. I suspected smuggling, but murder. They approached me pre-flight, subtle offers of bribes to look away. I refused, but Laurent sensed the net closing. The denouement accelerated, Poirot pacing with the energy of a storm-gathering force. He produced the cryptic note from the lounge door, the accomplice among allies, and held it aloft. Penned by Hargrove, slipped during the chaos to sow paranoia and buy time for the ground sabotage, the fire in the hangar, Thorne's chemicals ignited remotely, the gas in the room, a final bid to silence us all rigged while you feigned indignation. Thorne surged to his feet, his calm shattering like porcelain under a hammer. Enough. Yes, we conspired, but she deserved it. Blackmailer, thief, destroyer of lives. The dart was mercy compared to her cruelties. Hargrove, seeing the edifice crumble, slumped. It was seamless. Until you, Poirot. The clouds were our cloak. The confessions poured forth like a breached dam. Details of Paris meetings in smoke-filled bistros where debts and grudges fused into lethal alloy. Laurent's taunts, notes and whispers had goaded them. Her list a final mockery, Voss's false confession, a misguided shield for Elise, her kin through a tangled family tree unearthed by Poirot's inquiries. The scarab recovered from Hargrove's briefcase gleamed innocently on the table, its curse metaphorical but potent. Japp's constables moved in, cuffs clicking like the final notes of a dirge. Thorne's denial twisted into resignation, his hands, once instruments of healing, now bound. Hargrove muttered curses under his breath, his empire's fall presaged in the clink of metal. As they were led away, the aerodrome stirred to life. Planes taxied, engines roared, passengers oblivious to the drama that had unfolded in their midst. Poirot lingered with Japp and the exonerated women, the chalkboard now a testament to order restored. Justice, mon ami, is like gravity, inevitable, pulling all to ground. Voss adjusted her spectacles, a tentative smile breaking through, and the diamonds, recovered. Poirot nodded, patting his pocket where the gems nestled, destined for rightful heirs. Symbols of greed, now harbingers of restitution. Elise, shedding her undercover mantle, extended a hand. Your little grey cell saved us all. Interpol owes you. He bowed slightly, ever the gentleman. Oui. Non, mademoiselle. The pursuit of truth is its own reward. As the sun crested fully, bathing the tarmac in golden promise, Poirot stepped outside, the de Havilland Dragon Rapide a silent witness in the hangar. The London fog rolled in from the Thames, veiling the horizon, like lingering doubts dispelled. He reflected on the fragility of human facades, the actress's glamour hiding venom, the businessman's polish concealing desperation, the doctor's expertise twisted to malice. In the confined skies, where escape was illusion, truce had ascended unbidden, only to descend in clarity's embrace. Boarding a taxi for the city, Poirot gazed back at the aerodrome, a microcosm of the world's enigmas. The case closed, but his mind already hummed with the next puzzle's whisper. Justice, aloft or aground, grounded the soul in resolute peace, where secrets dissolved like morning mist under the unrelenting sun.